Hey, this is Kevin Bigley. I play Luke in Upload, and I'm talking to Elias on the Man Cave Chronicles.
Welcome to another episode of the Man Cave Chronicles.
Welcome to the party, pal!
You're my boy, Blue!
Yo, Adrian!
A podcast with interviews of amazing guests from the world of pop culture.
Oh, yeah!
TV.
Nice!
Movies.
Oh, I love the movies!
Comedy and more. From deep inside the Man Cave, your host, Elias.
Kevin, welcome to the cave.
No, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
How are you, man? What's new with you?
I'm good. I don't know what's new. It seems like every day is kind of the same right now.
How's it?
Listening to this in like 2021. I mean, tell me how it goes. But right now,
Right.
at the moment, just hanging out.
How's quarantine life treating you?
It's okay. I mean, I have good days and bad days. Mostly good days now. I mean, relatively. It's all relative and subjective. But yeah, I've been doing like a little bit of writing, and I've been getting back to reading. There was a time in which, like, when this first hit, I felt like I couldn't really focus on like reading books and whatnot, which I tend to do a lot of. But I've been playing a lot of guitar. That's been helping. So yeah, I feel like I'm slowly getting my bearings a little bit back, where I'm not like paralyzed by the news and whether it's good or bad.
Right. We just got every day is a new day. We're hopefully we're almost there, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's really kind of tough, and I think it's just like my endurance for certain things isn't as high. I don't mean to bring it down, but like I'm slowly getting it back. Like I'm working my endurance back up to those things, and it's just funny because it's like you read a book about something where even if the plot it has turned against the characters and things are looking a little grim for them, you're like, well, at least it's not a pandemic. So it like puts everything in perspective.
Right.
And it kind of finds it's making it a little bit more difficult to create tension and conflict in some of the stuff I'm reading or watching.
Right.
So yeah.
So, man, you've been busy the last few years. You've done various TV show appearances, and you recently now starred on Amazon's Upload, and we'll talk about that. But for the listeners, where are you originally from?
I'm from Northern California, the Sutter County area, so like north of Sacramento. I have to preface it quite a bit. Start small and grow out, because it's just kind of an area that not a lot of people know about. It's definitely a weirdly overlooked area. It's kind of a blue collar section. There's a lot of like Southern accents. It's kind of this portal to like Dust Bowl era, and kind of weirdly the South. I mean, it's just kind of a strange thing that you would never, a little pocket that you would never expect to be in California. So I'm from around there, spent some time in Oregon, and I spent some time in San Francisco, and then I went to college in Chicago for theater. So I've definitely moved around a lot, but I probably would say roots are based in Central Valley, California.
So, like, as a kid growing up there, who were you into?
I was in all sorts of stuff. I mean, we had like about 3/4 of an acre. We had a little mobile home that sat on the property, so I spent my time like kind of like zeroing in on a tree and being like, I'm climbing that today. So that's what I was really into. I don't know. I did 4-H, raised a pig. We kind of did a little bit of like, I guess, ranching a little bit. Didn't really come natural to me. It wasn't necessarily a lifestyle I wanted, but I didn't really get into acting until I was about 14, and kind of found my thing and found something I was good at. So, but yeah, I was just like any kind of other happy-go-lucky kid who was running around outside and probably getting too much sun.
So you said you were around 14 when you really started getting into acting. Like, so what made you get into that? Was there a certain movie or TV show you were watching one day and you were like, man?
I mean, there were certainly a lot of movies and TV. It's like the funny kid in school is just a kid who's good at memorization, I think. Like I was just really good with memorizing like little bits and forming them. I guess I had that thing too that not class clowns tend to have, but maybe they do. But for me specifically, I wasn't a class clown, but I was the kid who would watch like premium blends and stand-up specials and remember jokes and stuff. And so I was kind of I was like the wind-up monkey, you know, like some kids on the playground would be like, "Hey Kevin, do that bit from Saturday Night Live," or blah, blah, you know, and you just shamelessly launch into it. And you're Farley impression at 11 years old. So like that was like my thing, you know. And that kind of naturally lends itself to performing live, which at that age most kids you know, really they fear public speaking. So I was excited for that kind of stuff, and I was fairly okay at it, or at least that was the response I was getting. And you know, when you're a kid and all of a sudden you get a response from adults that is positive, and it's kind of affirming, and you go, "Oh yeah, I can do that." So I did a Shakespeare play when I was in 8th grade. That was Midsummer Night's Dream, and I played like the role that most kids play, who are kind of the ham, which is Nick Bottom, was a comical character, and I got a lot of laughs and all that stuff. So it really gave me a lot of confidence. And a kid who was kind of just a you know, B student. I wasn't necessarily, I was smart, but I was one of those smart kids that was not good with school, if that makes sense. I was like, sarcastic, I was witty, I was quick, or at least I'd like to think so, both then and now. But yeah, I thought that my skills lend themselves to outside of academia. So I just kind of started focusing on what I could do to get better at one of the only things I felt I was really good at.
So like when you told your family this is what you wanted to do, like how did that go? What was their reaction?
You know, I think the cliche would be that they would have been opposed, but my parents were like strangely aggressively supportive. And it was not what you would expect. Like I said, come from a blue collar background. My dad worked as a hod carrier, so using construction, working in plaster and concrete and whatnot. My mom had got her start doing a lot of reception work. Like I said, we lived in a trailer, like a mobile, and you know, they wouldn't necessarily be the parents that would be understanding of like a kid who's like, I want to be an artist, but like they actually they thought it was pretty cool. So you know, they supported me. When we were living in San Francisco, I was going to a little art school. The art school, it's not like fame, but it was definitely like, it's a school called School of the Arts in San Francisco. It's kind of like a grungy art school where a lot of the competitive, the school district of San Francisco, you know, these parents are really nervous about their kids getting lost in the quote unquote system. So they would put them at this art school and just like pick something, you know, paint or whatever.
Right.
So I was in with like the quote unquote rejects, I suppose. So my parents supported me anyway, and they were like, you should maybe go out for some commercials. And I was like, yeah, kind of want to just keep trying to get better or whatever. So they were strangely supportive. Like,
where did you go to college to study acting?
Went to college at DePaul University in Chicago. Being in San Francisco, there were a few kids that went to DePaul and they'd come back to like do the talk back to juniors and seniors, and they were like, this is a really good program. Chicago is not only a great city, but it's a good acting city. There's some really good black box theaters, and at the time, it was very appealing to me to like maybe just go to college for 4 years and see if I could end up in like a small repertory theater doing Shakespeare, which I really liked, or doing little black box stuff and jump from show to show and be a waiter for the rest of my life. It's kind of like that's the reality. So I'll probably just do that, you know. So I went over to I auditioned, got in, and went to DePaul. So spent 4 years there, graduated, and then I stayed out in Chicago for a year doing that exact thing, working in restaurants and bars and doing some small black box theater. So yeah.
So what pushed you to come back towards LA?
I mean, I wanted to do film and television. I think it was really frustrating for me as an actor because I was really tired of playing people outside of my age, which is something that you do a lot of in
Right.
college because it's a casting pool and they have these plays. Most of the plays aren't built for early 20-year-olds because they're really not that interesting. Like, like Tennessee Williams wasn't writing a lot of plays about like being 19 and trying to figure yourself out. So what happens a lot of the time is you do plays where you're playing a 35-year-old or something, and it's just kind of frustrating. And film and television is appealing because there were all these parts that I felt like I could kind of bring myself to it a lot more compared to like lathering myself with old man like makeup and acting like I'm a geriatric 85-year-old and in the Tempest or something. So I just wanted to start doing more specifically comedy because that was severely lacking in a lot of the theater that I was going out for. And I started getting some parts. And the frustrating thing again with this was that in Chicago, it kind of balances out that you can do theater and you can do film and television, but you can't really do them at the same time unless one of them's paying for you to do it.
Mm.
And what I mean is that during the day, a lot of my auditions would have been for film and television. But then for theater, if I was in a show, you're performing at night. So when are you supposed to have a job that's going to get you by? You kind of have to pick theater or film and television. And, I started to book some little roles, film, television stuff. And specifically, I got a pilot that was a pilot presentation. So it's just like a snippet, like a 10 to 15-minute pilot for Fox. And it was directed by Vince Vaughn. And it was a big moment for me. I was like the lead in it, one of them, co-lead. And pilot didn't go, but he was great. And he kind of pushed me to move out to LA. He was like, it's not going, we're not going to get picked up, but man, you got the, whatever it is, you can do it. And I believe in you and you should go out there and give it a shot. So I did. So I moved out to 2010. Been out here 10 years.
So I mentioned you've done a lot of TV shows and stuff like that. One of my favorites a few years ago was Sirens.
Yeah.
Man,
Nice.
and I was me and my wife were bummed when that show got canceled after 2 seasons. And it was like, how was it like being on a show like that?
It was just such a crazy, wonderful success of mine that I got that. I think I booked that when I was 25, about to turn 26 for the pilot, which is crazy, to like get a pilot that then gets picked up, and you're heading into that first season. I mean, I had worked valet for a while, so I got to quit my day job, and there was a lot of big things that happened because of it for me, and gave me a career, and not only a career, it gave me some really good friends. I got to go back to Chicago, which was a surreal experience, to go back to the city where you just graduated college, and you're like debating when you're in Chicago, like, do I move to LA? Like, and there's so many people in Chicago, or through no fault of their own, that I knew who were like, don't do it. And, I'm going to wait until I book something that films in LA that brings me out there. And there's so much work here in Chicago. And while that was true, I made the jump, like I said, and a few years later, you book a job that sends you back to Chicago. It was amazing. It was like, oh, I guess my risk paid off. And yeah, I also gained a lot of friends, like I said, with not only the writers who were at my wedding, Mike Mosley. I learned so much from Mike, him being playing Johnny and being the number one on the call sheet. I learned what it's like to be a leader of a show, and I learned a lot about press, and getting better at it. And Bob Fisher and Dennis Leary are two very close friends of mine, especially Bob, who I talk to all the time. So He wrote Wedding Crashers. He officiated my wedding,
That's awesome.
which actually that happened during season 2. So it was just a big moment for me, and I really gained so much out of it. I was really down when it got canceled. It was kind of an existential crisis of mine, in which it was like, wow, this thing is gone now, and I have to go back to the drawing board. And you're going out for other shows and auditioning and stuff, and you realize that they don't really come along that often where you're on one that you really like. You like people, you like it, and it's good, and it's funny, and it's fun, and they respect you, and it's really hard to get that again. So it kind of felt like a Sisyphean task of like pushing that boulder up the hill, and that's just kind of going to be the career.
But now you're on Amazon's Upload and you play Luke.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
So tell us about that, man. Tell us about first tell us about briefly what the show is about for the listeners that haven't watched it yet.
Oh man, I'm so bad at this. Okay, so describing this show is crazy because we did the table read for the pilot episode in December of 2017. So I've definitely been sitting on this a long time, and it's a hard show to explain. So I've spent like the past 2.5 years explaining it to my family and friends and loved ones to really no success. Because then it came out and they were like, why didn't you tell us that it was funny? It's like, I did, I tried. So it's about, basically it takes place in 2033. We have the technology to upload someone's consciousness to an afterlife moments before they die. So you can either die a natural death, or you can take the guarantee and be uploaded to an afterlife. But it's kind of like a cell phone plan. You have a company that you're tied to. So this one's a company called Horizon, and you're uploaded to like this like lodge or this beautiful hotel that feels like kind of Vermont, like in this beautiful trees and whatnot. And there's all of these wonderful big things like endless food and all that. But you quickly realize that it has a big Minority Report vibe, in which there's in-app purchases, and everything costs a lot of money. So it's like you're being nickeled and dimed. So it's not really the utopia that it's made out to be. So it's kind of like a cool little critique on extreme capitalism, and there's a little bit of about mourning, and it's also very funny. At least I think so. So it's a cool, quirky show, and Greg Daniels did it. He did Parks and Rec, and he did The Office, so it certainly has kind of his quirk / heart brand on it that I think is really cool.
What was your reaction when you first read the script before you went for your audition?
I was like, I have to be on this. This is like kind of my ideal show. I really wanted to work on something that was high concept, and I wanted to work on something that was a little bit closer to myself. Not that Luke is an exact carbon copy of me as a human being, but Brian, my character that I played in Sirens, wasn't necessarily that close to me either. He's kind of a goob, and certainly that's a part of who I am. But like, I have a bit more edge to me than Brian. So to be able to play somebody who felt a little bit closer was an opportunity that I wanted to jump on. But also, I really wanted to work with Greg. I did a pilot with him back in 2012 for NBC, and it had like Tony Shalhoub and Allison Janney and Gil Ozeri and Aya Cash. I mean, just a knockout cast. And it was one of those pilots. It was like the pilot of the pilot season that was like, oh, that's a guarantee. And the guy who did Parks and Rec in The Office, this is going to be a big hit. And it didn't go, and I had to go back to work for my valet job, which was disappointing. But also, it really saddened me to lose out on the opportunity to get to work with Greg on a full season of television. So to be able to be granted that opportunity this time around was something that I relished. So when I went in for that audition, I was nervous because I wanted to nail it and I really wanted the part. But also I went in as a recurring. Greg had told me in the audition, he was like, if you get this and she's pilot and all that, but it's kind of like I'm building an ensemble and we're going to kind of figure out who we want these people to go on adventures with, how we pair people up. That's kind of the idea of the show. There's an opportunity for you to, do a good job and your part will grow, but at the same time, it just might not work out. There's people in the pilot that you don't really see return, So I was at risk of becoming that, which they all did a good job, but it just didn't fit his vision. So I was happy to be a part of that.
Now we mentioned you play Luke on the show, so how would you describe him?
Yeah, Luke's kind of like this gruff, irritable guy, but really a total softie underneath. So really, I felt like he was kind of this Labrador when it comes to following Robbie Amell, who plays Nathan, just like following him around, wanting and insisting that he be Nathan's best friend and doing everything he can to prove that. Also, it's just so funny to me that there's this universe that Greg created of characters who are faced with the real existential idea of continuing on with consciousness after quote unquote after death, right? They're like alive, and some like people like Nathan are kind of figuring out who are they without work as an identity, and how do they keep growing? Do they keep growing or whatever? And then there's Luke, and Luke doesn't really concern himself with such heightened thought. He's just more concerned with hacking the universe to get some of the premium shit, and how can he get drunk? How can he have sex? How can he get into an area where he's not allowed? It's like when I put my dog outside. My dog's kind of a troublemaker, and we have a little backyard, and whenever I put her outside, it's like, look at all this space. You can go over here and here and here. And she will search out the hole in the fence. It's like, this isn't good enough. And that's what Luke is to me, like a character who's like, where am I not supposed to be? And I'm going to figure out how I can get there.
Did you find like any like challenges like portraying this character or connecting with him at all, you think?
I don't think I did necessarily. I know that sounds kind of cocky. I don't think so, because it was really kind of tailor-made for me. Greg and the writers, they brought us in, and we talked to the writers, and we got lunch and stuff, and they also watched your reel, and they watch your work, and they know what kind of jokes feel good coming out of your mouth and stuff. So there was a lot of stuff that, was kind of built for us to succeed. I would say that the biggest struggle I had personally as an actor with this was trying to overcome my reverence of Greg, because I put him on a pedestal because I want to impress him. And I've worked with showrunners like Bob. Like when I work with Bob Fisher, after I do a take of something, I will go up to Bob. I did the Moody's with him. I can come up to him and he'll give me a hug, like he'll be like, oh my God, you're amazing. That's great. It's just like, if I'm a Labrador in that situation, it's constant petting. Greg's not going to give you that because he's just not really that concerned with your ego and praise and whatnot. And if it's funny and if it's working or whatever, you're really not going to hear anything. You're only going to hear if it's not working. So I kind of, after the first take on my first day, I had gone up to him and I was like, was that good? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, you have any notes? And he was like, no. And it was such a letdown for me because I was just sitting there spinning my wheels, for no reason. And I was like, dude, you got to relax. Just go sit down in your chair. Don't worry what that dude's thinking, it'll be all right. You'll be okay. So and that was kind of a struggle to like cool it, calm down.
What do you think was like your favorite scene that you play Luke in? What episode?
Oh man, so many. I mean, I really like all of my stuff with Zainab. It was just so fun. the hot tub stuff is so great. Like when we're kind of trading barbs, it's so fun, so easy to work with her. Everyone is so prepared. They're so prepared on that show. So your ability to play to the height of your own ability is that possibility is very high every day. So you don't have to worry about anyone. Are they going to be a pain in the ass? Are they going to know their lines? And sometimes, unfortunately, that is the case, but not on the show. With other shows, it might be, but not this. So it was really cool to work with someone like Zainab and Robbie too. Like I loved all that stuff. I loved our gray market day. Oh my God. And I mean, when we go into this space and you see all of these booths and stuff, the amount of set decks was just unreal. Set decoration, the little jokes in the background that maybe people won't even see. It was just like, wow, like the attention to detail was pretty special. I know Greg's very meticulous when it comes to that stuff, and everyone else followed suit. So it just made you feel like you were on this big project that was super creative, and everyone's working really, really hard, and I think it shows on screen.
So like, what was the reaction from like your friends and family like when they watched this? Because like as soon as this got released, like the same weekend it got picked up for a season 2 right away. So the hype was pretty good, and it, like everything just went like fast for you guys.
Yeah, it seems like it's gone really fast. The overall reaction has been pretty strong. It's pretty crazy listening to what people are saying as far as like articles and think pieces that continue to come out, and the amount of press that we're doing, and press attention for a first season of a comedy. That's pretty rare. It's really common with dramas because they're concept driven usually, but ours has dramatic elements. So I don't know, I'm talking myself in circles, but I'd say that with my family and friends, it was awesome for them to finally check it out, because I was tired, like I said, of trying to explain this freaking show.
Yeah.
So it was nice that they finally saw it, and they were like, "Oh, it's funny," and "Oh, the sci-fi stuff is really cool." Because, like I said, we wrapped shooting on the series on the first season May 10th of last year. So we're sitting on this for a whole year, and there's all these really cool moments that no one can really understand when I try to relay the information.
Yeah.
Like even my own wife, she hadn't seen a frame of it until later. So until like March, she hadn't seen the show. So it was really frustrating, and you had to really be patient. So I was really happy for people to finally check it out.
Have they given you guys? I know, like with everything that's been going on, have they even mentioned when they think season 2 might start filming?
There's rumors of all sorts of things, like I'm hearing little bits and pieces, but I think we're kind of stuck in the same realm that everyone else is, as far as like, I saw, the guys from This Is Us talking about fall, and that would be really cool. End of summer would be cool. I think that I speak not for upload, but for production as a whole. For everybody, it seems like the vaccine is something that would be great, and I hope that we get it by January. But I think people are going to try to feel out when we can treat it as a new normal, at least temporarily, to get back to work. So hopefully soon, man. I don't know. We'll be ready and raring. They started the writers' room. At least I can say this. They started the writers' room back in February, which is something that happened for a show that I did called Undone for Amazon as well, and that had a nice little successful season 1. But for high concept shows, sometimes to get a jump on it and get ahead of the game, they'll grant the ability to staff a writer's room for a season 2 ahead of time, even without a decision on season 2. So they've been writing for like 3 months. So it's nice that the work wasn't for naught, and they gave us the thumbs up. So now they're kind of in overdrive, kind of getting ready for once we can go back. So and that's hopefully soon.
Now, like I said, you've been acting for how many years now? You've been in the entertainment industry?
I guess like professionally 10 years, a
Wow.
little over
Wow.
10.
So like, what do you like? I like asking this question. What do you enjoy more, self-tape or auditioning in front of people?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually like auditioning in front of people, but only for callbacks. I'd say that like not having producers in the room and going in like for the pre-screen kind of thing. It's sometimes I have some horror stories like everybody does, and there are certainly some things that are frustrating and things you don't like or want to do, and that in that regard, a self tape's good. But man, sometimes I just don't do well on self tapes because the stress isn't the same, and maybe the stress kind of brings out some good stuff from me. My wife is an actor too. Kate Cobb and is her name. And she does great with self tape. She books way more on self tape than I do for sure. So she loves it. But for me, I'd rather just jump right to the callback, like anybody would. But
Yeah.
I just feel like you can feel whether or not they're interested around that.
What's your routine when you right before you go and do an audition live? Like some people do some weird things. I've had guests where they're like, oh, I take a nap before I go, or I go for a run or a walk. Like, is there anything that you do?
I kind of just drill the lines. I have like I think it's I don't know the name of the app. I think it's Line Memo or something. I use it when I shoot too. I just kind of run the scenes over and over and over again because my biggest concern is whether or not the lines are going to work. That I'm just going to get in there blank. So I do that. I just run it over and over and over again. I try to chill myself out, not freak out. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But I haven't auditioned I mean, before Upload, it was a lot. But once you get on a show, and I got up to regular in 2018, it's not that they stop, but they become different. They're not as frequent, and they're for kind of guest parts and stuff. And I haven't had a pilot season in a couple of years, and I say that as a humble brag. But it's nice because you don't have to have the same anxiety. So I don't really have the routine anymore. It feels just more relaxed. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's just lines for me, just so I
Yeah.
can
So
not freak out.
you mentioned how like how much you love like comedy and stuff. Yeah. Is there somebody that you would love to star next to someday?
I'd say, besides like the big ones like Bill Murray or something, um, who's like an idol of mine for sure.
What's your favorite Bill Murray movie? Since you said that,
Oh man, it's so hard, but I
right?
would I would honestly say, I mean, the easy one for sure is Ghostbusters, but God, Groundhog Day is one of my favorite movies of all time. He is just spectacular in that, and even like a bit part like he did in Tootsie was just so good, and Life Aquatic and Rushmore and all that. I mean, he's like a spirit animal of mine for sure. But Will Forte, man, Will Forte is one of my favorite actors. I love Greg Kinnear. I love Steve Zahn. Like I Danny McBride. I mean, there's definitely a list of people. Maybe they're not. Steve Zahn's probably not the most popular of answers, but but to me, it's like that dude. I love that guy's work, and he definitely had an impact on me as an actor.
Awesome. Do you have a dream role that you kind of hope you could play someday?
I don't know about a dream role. I think that I really like when I get to do some indies and stuff, and kind of play. It sounds weird, but like play monsters, where you
Yeah.
kind of these guys who are kind of toxic. It's usually kind of fun because you get to kind of dive deep into this weird, intricate character. I always liked Shakespeare villains because they were usually the better written of the characters. So yeah, I would love to do something like that. Just kind of a weird indie. We make our own stuff a lot of times, me and my wife, and we I have a writing partner, Ryan Collins, and he and I have written a lot of stuff together. And so I think more so a dream role would be something that we're trying to make this movie right now, and obviously it's been put on hold because of the current situation. But next year it'd be really nice to get it done. But something that I got to work with my wife, I think would be the dream.
Is there any other like projects that are coming out that you've already finished?
We were just about to start shooting on Done for season 2. And I read some of the scripts for that. It's really cool. They're growing it in a really interesting way, and there's still no word on Moody's season 2, but what I'm hearing from that's really cool too, because they're still working on it, and but that isn't official either. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I have a lot of work that is kind of like up in the air, waiting for when it can continue. Yeah. But as far as like in the can, no, nothing in the can that's gonna come out.
Kevin, lastly, how can the listeners find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Bigley, and Instagram it's at Kevin W Bigley. So I got a little fancy on that, and I think that's good for social media. I have a book out. It's a novel that's on Amazon. You can get it. It's on Bookshop. It's out via Clash Books. You can get it on Clash Books as well. They've like hand wrap it. It's a really nice gesture, and they'll send you some bookmarks. But it's called Comaville, and it came out in March, just in time for the pandemic.
How long did it take you to write the book?
It took me about a year and a half. To write that. I'd done a lot of short stories for some literary magazines and stuff. That was a lot of fun, and it was a very positive, creative outlet for me. And I had this idea for a book. There's some similar themes to upload that I think are pretty cool. So if you like some of that kind of high concept stuff, that's a little thinky, I think that you'll dig you'll dig Comaville. But yeah, it's about this dude about this guy who wakes up in his childhood bedroom, and he has no idea how he got there, and he has no recollection of it. He realizes that this house that he woke up in is in the city, and it's a city of memory. And there's like all these people from his past, from his childhood. There's his favorite camp counselor and favorite teachers and kids that he moved away from. And it's a city of memory and nostalgia, and they're celebrating. They're happy that he's there. But you find out, not a spoiler because it happens in the second chapter, but he's in a coma. So he's in a coma, and it's a split narrative. So half of the book is in his mental state, and then the other half is in a hospital room with his sister and their parents, and kind of the discussions that are happening in the hospital room chapters. In the next chapter, in his Comaville, in his city, you meet these people that are from these memories and stuff. But when you're in a coma, sometimes your brain can start to die off. You have neurons kind of can die. So what happens is the city starts to warp, and it starts to kind of decompose in front of him and turn on him. So it kind of becomes a little twisted, but it's funny. I think it's dark and it's weird, but I think it's really heartfelt, and I worked really hard on it.
That's great. That's great. All right, Kevin, this was fun. I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate having me.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap, everybody. That's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to the Man Cave Chronicles podcast.
I finally get my man cave.
You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at the MCC Podcast, and our website, themccpodcast.com. Until next time.